Just go for it. How many of you were on the Power 30 call this morning? So powerful, pun intended. It's amazing the simplicity of our business, the simplicity of action. And you know, the neat thing with the Power 30 is just a cross section of what you can do to build this business. And the beauty of the Power 30 is it can be done from the comfort of your home in your pajamas, right? Or comfort of your desk at work very quickly. Doesn't take a lot of time, but what it takes is consistency. And I know that if you consistently do what we're asking on those Zooms and follow that, like it works. I also know that's one slice of the business, right? That's an option, an opportunity. You have to double down on something, whether it's doubling down on the action on social media or it's doubling down on in person. But if you're going to be in person, you have to do that consistently also, right? It has to be putting yourself in an environment to see new people every single week. It might not be every single day, but it probably better be at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days a week where you're in an environment where you're having new conversations, because it's going to take that level of intensity in order to have the conversations, to validate those conversations with the guest calls and the tools, resources, lives, Zooms, three-way calls, three-way messenger chats that will then lead to people sampling the product, trying a 5 or a 10-day experience, then becoming customers, then joining your community as a promoter. So what we're going to do today is just talk a little bit about two things. Number one is the business that you're creating. Brian always says you have to manage the business that you're creating as well as the business that you're in currently, right? He talks about the business that you're in today. Where are your conversations at? Who are the promoters that you're working with? Who are the customers that you're working with? Then you also have the business that you're becoming. And if you're not seeing into the future, if you're not visualizing what the end of 2024 looks like, then your business is probably going to be very similar as it is right now. Meaning there's not a vision for where you're creating. There's not a direction for where you're going. Rather, you're just going like this. You're just spinning your wheels. And a lot of us get stuck in this. And you may even achieve a certain level of success, and then you feel like you're just spinning your wheels. Well, chances are you haven't created or designed the business that you're going to have in 2024. So the question is, like, at the end of next year, and we're going to do a Zoom that's just vision casting, kind of a pop-up Zoom here before the end of the year. But the question is, at the end of 2024, where will you be inside of Prove It? Where will you be inside of your business? What will it look like? Who are you working with? What kind of volume are you creating? What kind of income are you producing? What does that look like? If you haven't started to see that, if you're currently on here as a rank 2 or rank 3 business, do you see yourself as a rank 6 or a rank 7 business? Or maybe you're a circle champion right now. Are you visualizing and seeing yourself as a rank 7 or rank 8? Where does that go? And what does it look like? Right? If we don't take any time to map that out, to plan it, to visualize it, to write about it, then we haven't created the space. We haven't created the structure for that business to show up in. Okay. If all we're doing is the Power 30, all we're doing is the action. Now, don't get me wrong. It takes both, right? It takes both. So we have to do each, and we have to make sure that we are building our business today at the same time seeing the future. So the guest that I have today is Josh Rapkin, and I'm not sure if Dre is on also going to share with us, Josh, or is it just you?
Just me for
Just
today.
you. All right.
And Keto.
Oh, and this dog named Keto. There you go. I tried to name our dog Keto back in 2015 when we got him, and Chrissy said no.
I got away with it.
You got away with it. I love it. So the reason I asked Josh to share is because he is the epitome. I don't know the right word to use, but he is the example of what I'm talking about. Because I remember early on, Josh and I had a conversation right when Josh joined, actually very early on, and he's like, "Nick, I can do this. Like, I'm gonna bring people." And he called me to learn about the compensation plan. Remember that, Josh?
I do.
And I took a few minutes and just walked through it with him. But I remembered his excitement, his drive, his determination. And I also remember that, like, he believed that he could do it. Just, Josh, maybe paint a little picture how you got started, how your business went for the first number of years, where maybe you hit some plateaus, and then how you kind of busted through those.
Yeah, for sure. Um, wow. So we got started, or it's just over 8 years ago. And for most of you that know us, you see us as like a couple doing this together. But interesting to know, my wife actually not only didn't want anything to do with it in the beginning, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, but actually was mad at me when I brought home the first ketones, because honestly, we were 6 months out of a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. We didn't have any money, especially not to spare. And so I'll never forget bringing them home and her just not being happy about it is a nice way to put it. And I love bringing that up now because, of course, it worked out awesome. But, you know, we got started. The product had an immediate impact on me. I was 130 pounds heavier than I am today, thankfully, and thanks to ketones. And because the product had such a big impact on me, and because I really needed to find something to move our lives forward, you know, I got interested in Prove It and the business opportunity, and actually went and showed up at my first event. And funny enough, it was really not long after we enrolled that the person that enrolled me actually left Prove It. Funny story, by the way, he's gone on to like 7 other companies since. And if he had just stayed here, I think he'd be pretty happy based on what we've accomplished. But and I'll never forget coming to my first event and not knowing anybody, and not, I mean, I was a completely different person than the person that I am today in terms of self-belief, in terms of vision. I mean, I was, Brian talks about starting between somewhere between scared and nervous. Honestly, that was me, and probably even less than that, if you can imagine. And it was great because Prove It, as you know, it's such an incredible community of people, and there was so much belief and certainty there. And I just knew for the first time that I was somewhere that I truly belonged and that there was opportunity. And it's funny too, because I do remember Nick, and by the way, Nick's not in my upline, right? And as a lot of people, Dustin's not in my upline, and I could name a bunch of others, but coming there, everybody treated me as if like I was part of their team. And I'll never forget, you know, like at night after the event, walking around by myself, not knowing anybody, and Nick or Dustin or whoever inviting me in to join their huddle and to making me be a part of it. And so I think the important part about that is being a part of that event and being welcomed in that way helped me to build just a little bit of belief, which got me to go home and start taking some action. I got more excited, you know, and as you start taking more action, you start getting results. I don't know if you guys are familiar with kind of the belief wheel that Brian's talked about, but get a little bit of belief, take some action, you take the action, you get some results, your belief goes up, and it starts this incredible spiral. And so, you know, but I think for clarity, it's important to know I wasn't an overnight success. We didn't come out of the chute smoking hot. I mean, outside of the MVP bonus, I made $100 my first month in Prove It. Like $100 second month. It took 6 months before I made more than $500 in a month. And I think that's important because now we get the pleasure of working with so many people, and I see so many people frustrated with their success or feeling like they're not doing enough or not achieving enough. And I'm like, hold on, man. If you could just sit down and look at your start on paper next to my start on paper, you would realize that you're absolutely smoking us out of the gate. And if you could see what that looks like over 8 years, you'd be pretty excited instead of frustrated. So I hope that makes sense. But sometimes I think we just hold ourselves to this unreasonable measure or standard instead of just really digging in and looking at the long term. So about a year into Prove It, we had finally started to get some good success. You know, now my wife was starting to get involved. I don't even know if she was sharing yet, but she was definitely a lot more supportive. We hit rank 6, thought things were going really good. I decided that I was, you know, going all in with Prove It, and that like I had found my calling. As some of you may know, I went and got an R10 tattooed on my wrist for rank 10. That was going to be my big goal, and I was, you know, burning the boats and taking the island. And really for myself, making a commitment that I couldn't let myself off the hook, because my whole life I had always been somebody who just quit. I had just really never accomplished anything. I tried a lot of stuff, but as soon as there was any resistance, I would just turn and run. And so I think part of it was really making that for me. and I'm not suggesting anybody go tattoo themselves, but finding a way to get really super connected to what I wanted. And also because of the events and because of the layered learning and Brian and Joseph and all these different things, I got really connected to the why and what that would look like. And it's really important because there's been a lot of times over the last 8 years that those connection points and that clarity is what kept us going. And I haven't ever really shared this, but I'll share this with you guys. I had another year in, so now we're in for 2 years. We hit rank 7. Now my wife's fully in with me. Well, this is it. Like, we had made it, and we decided to move to Louisville, Kentucky, to be right in the fire. You want to get by the fire, we were going to get in the fire. And so we quit everything else that we were doing. My wife was bringing in a little bit of income, doing some other stuff, and went from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Louisville, Kentucky, moved into a house that was owned by Brian Underwood. Our cost of living went up, doubled basically from where we were to where we moved in, and he's the landlord. And it was literally this time of year, but it was like early December. I got notice that one of my top guys, a guy named Joe Jurdy, who did a lot of his stuff online and through the internet, a lot of the volume that was coming in through him turned out to be fraud. I had no idea, by the way, because it was online. We didn't know the people. And so long story short, we went from rank 7 to like losing almost half our volume overnight, and then finding out that we've been paid on it for several months and we're now going to have to pay it back. The commissions were going to get clawed back. And I'm sharing this because at that point, I was freaked out. I thought, what did I get myself into? I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent to Brian, of all people, which is pretty a scary thought in itself. Honestly, I didn't even know how I was going to put anything under the tree for my family for Christmas. And it just put me into a tizzy. And I remember the first thing I did was I started like trying to buy these courses, like whatever coaching program. And I was going to figure it out. And I'd sit in front of my computer, and my wife had no idea, by the way. And it was just, I was so in my head trying to figure out how to fix this. And I couldn't. And I remember having a really good conversation with Mitch, actually, who really helped me get some clarity around that it wasn't about what was under the tree, that my presence was the gift that truly mattered for my family, and that being, sorry, it still gets a little emotional for me, but being present for them was what mattered most, and reconnecting to why I joined the business and what my heart connection to prove it was. And honestly, it was being able to contribute to other people. Like at the source of all of it, I had never in my whole life, I had made some money, lost some money, done all these other things, but I had never brought real value to the world. I had never had anybody hug me or thank me or be tearful about what I offered them or was able to do for them, or so like that connection, that the focus, that was the glue and the real drive. And so we just made a decision, and I decided that I was just going to focus. Wasn't even going to look at the back office, as crazy as that sounds. I was just going to focus on how many samples I could get out, how many people I could talk to, how many people I could impact, and just live in the heart connection to the contribution and the impact of what we get to do. And literally, little by little, we started getting more people and getting more stuff going, and it started to be fun again. And you know what? It wasn't overnight. It took a full year. So now 3 years in to regain 7. And we never looked back, and it still hasn't been a straight up from there. There's been a lot of ups and downs. But the thing that I would tell you is every time that we've fallen into some challenges or fallen into some valleys is always coming back to the connection of what we have, what we get to offer. I mean, if you ask me my favorite thing about Prove It, look, the product changed my life. I lost 130 pounds. It completely changed my life span, my health, everything. But then being a part of this community and who it's helped to develop myself into as a person and a human being, if this ended tomorrow, I'm a completely different person because of our community and because of our layered learning process. And then the financial piece kicks in, and then we've done really, really well, like generationally changed our family's life because of Prove It. So how do you pick between the three? But if you ask me, I would tell you, it's because going through all of that, now we have the ability to offer that to others. And it's after 8 years, I don't wake up in the morning excited to make another dollar. I mean, I like money. Don't misunderstand me. But It's not a motivator. I get pulled out of bed every morning, 8 years into this, knowing that we can impact and change somebody's life with our product, and even honestly, more so our business. And a lot of times both. And to be able to have a connection to that, doing it for this long, is something that I don't even know if I'd ever be able to turn off. Um, it's just so incredible. And being at Epic again, just recently, even, it was funny. We were sitting there, and maybe this will be helpful. We were sitting there with a group of people debriefing. And I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but this is just on my heart. And we were talking about different things. And somebody had talked about how they were challenged with bringing up the business. And, after doing this for 8 years, as incredible as our product is, I feel like the business has changed more lives, including my own, than just the product. And, I said, listen, the way everybody's feeling sitting here, could you imagine for a second if you just thought about the opportunity to bring people to events like this and the impact that you can make in their lives? Would that feel different than trying to sell them into a business or trying to talk about money? Not that one's any better than the other. I just wanted, I guess, to sort of point out that we have something so powerful in so many different ways that if one of them doesn't always feel congruent, then focus on the one that does. I don't know. I just can't stress to you enough the importance of having a really clear vision and focus on the things that you hear over and over again. What do you want? Why do you want it? And then most important, like putting together, as Nick said, the plan. And I completely agree with everything you said, Nick. I would maybe just not say argue, but I think the what do you want and the why you want it part is probably even a little bit more important. I've just never been a guy who's been amazing at systems or tactical or the X and O's. And I think you learn that stuff as you go, but the thing that's really carried us the furthest has been the vision and the clarity on those things. I guess one other thing I would just share, and I'm happy to go in whatever direction you want. The other experience that I've had with working with a lot of people, and it wasn't easy for me when we started. When you asked me what did I want, or to do a vision board or something, I was like, I didn't know really what to do. But the truth is, because I just didn't believe that I could achieve those things, and didn't think I was worthy of having those things. And so I think as you go into the new year and start trying to get some clarity on what it is that you really want. I mean, fuzzy targets are hard to hit. If you don't have real clarity on exactly what you want, not saying you can't have success, but good luck on getting there, and especially further faster. And then in a deep connection to why do you want it? And it's actually one of my favorite activities with people is to get really granular on what do you want. An example, somebody says, well, I want to be wealthy. Great. What does that actually look like? What is your definition? How will you know when you've achieved it? Well, I want to help a lot of people. Awesome. How many? What does that look like? Like set up some indications so that you can progress your success. And so as we were kind of going through some of this stuff, one of the things that I said was, hey, if you, and this, I'll say this to all of you right now, as you're kind of going into 2024, trying to identify what do you want? And more importantly, why do you want it? If tonight, when you went to bed, on your bed was a magic lantern, like a genie lamp, and you could rub it 3 times and a genie popped out, and you were guaranteed 100% to get whatever it is that you asked for. Couldn't fail. And think about it tying to your prove it business. Like, what would you ask for? Right? That could be, I think, a great first step of understanding, like, well, if you knew you could get it, no matter what would it be? So figure that out and then ask yourself, well, why? Why do I want it? And then even more importantly, ask yourself, like, what would be different? What would your life feel like? What would change? What would that look like? And if you can get really clear in that, that will be your probably greatest gift going into 2024. And honestly, at the end of all of this, I would just say that is what has carried us through our prove it journey, and especially through the valleys.
I love it. My
not sure if
God.
that's what you were asking for, but I was a little all over the place,
I
Mike. So
mean, that is perfect. I wrote down certainty, like definiteness of purpose. Josh made a decision, he committed. I mean, if you tattoo a Prove It logo on your arm, if you tattoo rank 10 on your arm, if you tattoo drink T-tones on your legs, would you imagine that that person's probably going to create success in this business? Why? Because they're pretty darn committed. And if once that's on your body, it's like you have to do it. You've just proclaimed it to yourself, proclaimed it to the world. So I'm not necessarily saying that y'all have to go get tattoos, although if you want to, that's up to you. Maybe it's what you need. Sometimes this business is the hardest to work from a place of comfort. All right. I've talked to some other pilots before. I've talked to people who have very solid jobs that support their family very well, and they're just comfortable. Right. And when you're super comfortable, it's so much easier just to remain in that comfort than it is to step outside and really go for it. That's why you hear a lot of like rags to riches stories, or back up against the wall, or financially we're not in a great spot. And from that space, it sometimes is, I wouldn't say easier, but it's a different drive because there's no other choice. When you have another choice, do I work this business or do I not? Do I carve out the time or do I not? If you have a choice, well, I'm not going to because I don't have to. You have to decide. That's why this conversation of why are you doing this is so important, because if you don't really grasp that, if that doesn't truly drive you, then you're usually going to make the decision of comfort. You're going to make the decision that's the path of least resistance. Um, One of the stories I remember with Josh is kind of fun. Early on, for the first 3 or 4 years, Josh would come to every single event. He never missed an event, and he would always text me, "Hey, what are you up to? Can I come to your huddle? Can I come hang out?" And it would usually be Josh and maybe 1, 2, or 3 of his promoters, and I was always excited to have him, and he always adds great value and great energy. And I think how many the last couple events, Josh? How many from your team have been at the events?
it's funny you say that because I do remember I couldn't even get my wife to come. And then finally was like, okay, I got somebody to come. The last couple events, I don't know, 150, 180, something, a lot of people. I mean, it's a completely different story. And I do remember that. And thank you very much for always making me feel included.
So imagine this, and maybe you're in this situation right now where you've come to events and you've brought a promoter with you, or if you come to the events and you've just been alone. If that's the case, you're right on par with Josh's story. I love that. Like you're right on track. And if you've been doing this for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 6 years, and that's still the case, awesome. Josh was there for quite a long time. And then now 180 people in his organization at a Prove It event with him. Like, just think of the leverage, think of the stability. If you had that many people that were in your community that were all hearing the information, not having to hear it from you, who are now inspired to go take action because of their own reasons, like that's magical and that's powerful. Do you have any words of wisdom on how you went from 1 at the event to 180 at the event?
Yes, actually, there's 2 things I want to say about that. But first, to actually answer your question, yeah, it comes back to the belief. Like the events changed my life that I got so excited to bring other people to the events. I mean, honestly, just on a whole nother level from ketones in our business, I don't think there's anything more valuable in the world than bringing people to our events and the awarenesses that they can gain. So it just got really specific at it. And that could be like a whole training in itself in terms of like how to get people to events, how to actually ask the right questions. Honestly, it really comes back to what I would say is my number one thing in this whole business, which is just asking really good questions. Like you never have to be salesy or pushy about anything if you just ask people really good questions and are always in a position to serve and support them. And then as I got better at bringing more people to events, of course, we had other people like, Maddie and Brendan are a great example. They've got a world class at bringing people to events. And so then it's not just that I got 180 people there. They got 40 people there and this person got 20 people there. And so it passes through. But I think the biggest thing is I have so much belief and passion in what our events have done for me that if we talk about it, there's almost, I would say it'd be almost impossible for you not to catch that bug and want to experience it. And then through that process, you learn how to transfer that to others. One thing I just wanted to say, to go off topic, but it's funny because you go to these events and you were talking about, I was always like in my brain and like the little lost puppy dog, like looking around for a huddle or somebody to join, but I was so hungry, right? That I didn't care if it was 3 a.m. I was trying to find somebody who I could learn from, or, and I noticed sometimes when we go to the events, like some people decide not to stay in the room the whole time. Some people decide not to come to the huddle. Some people, and that's fine, that's their decision. But from a leadership perspective, if you want to identify the people to work with and give maybe your most, maybe like the 80-20 rule, right? And sometimes I think it's hard for people to decide, well, who do I give my time to? Well, give your time to the people that are showing up, to the people that are wanting more, to the people who, like, if you kind of get your filters right, it becomes really easy to see. Not to say that people that didn't come to the huddle don't deserve any attention. I don't want to be misunderstood. But like, if you're paying attention, there's clues all over. And the people that are the hungriest and want it the most will present themselves, and especially at events. And a lot of times, and we used to do a lot more events in person. I think it was almost easier to kind of sort and sift through some of that. So for whatever that's worth, it was a re-awareness that popped up at this last event. I don't know if that's helpful, but
Heck yeah. I love it. I love it. Let's see. Well, wrapping up here, Josh, I know you've had a journey just like everyone on here. It's always fun to see to see their journey and hear what it took to get there. Then you realize, oh, if that's what they did, I guess I'm right on track. I can do this too. And the more that you realize, most people that are walking across the stage is rank 10, rank 9, legend, rank 8, rank 7. It wasn't that they just signed up and it just happened. It's been a process. It's been almost Jamie Kern Lima's story of having to just pound the pavement and do it for years. So that being said, Josh, 2 questions. Number 1, any last piece of advice that you have for people that are watching right now? And then number 2, what's next? I'm guessing that you're going to have to reset your vision. Obviously, you've already got rank 10 crossed out, and you have a legend. If you haven't seen his arm, maybe you can show us, Josh. He's got legend like tattooed right here. I mean,
I don't know if you can see that.
oh yeah.
So
or
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, guys, if you want to hit legend, just tattooed on your arm.
Well, I'll answer your question, but since you brought that up, one thing that when I got the R10 tattooed on my wrist, as time went on and I started to come to more events and hear Joseph and his different trainings and different things, I started doing a lot of vision casting. So it's great to have a really clear vision, a want, and to be really clear on the why. I started putting it into my daily practice, really visualizing not only what I wanted, but already having it. And some of you have done some of those exercises. So just for more clarity, every morning for, at 4 years, I pictured being in the tattoo studio and feeling the needle going through across the R10 and having legend tattooed on my arm. I could smell it. I could tell you everything about it. Like, I lived that moment, and I lived accepting the rank 10 award on stage with my wife and what that felt like, what that looked like. So I don't know if that's helpful to you guys, but like, if you're picking up kind of what I'm laying down, the clarity of what do you want and why do you want it, and then the certainty of having it as if it's already done. It's just such a powerful, when that all comes together and you can really bring that together, I don't think there's anything more powerful. So to answer your question, what was it again? Sorry.
Any last words of advice? And then what's your next, obviously it's legend, but is there something that is a part of your vision for the future that you want to share?
Yeah, no, that's for sure. So the words of advice is really, I think, what we've been talking about. Like, for me, I just don't think there's anything more important. I mean, all the skills can come and they're super important. You got to do the activity, but you got to get the belief up, and then you got to get really clear on what you want and feeling that it's possible. And guess what? If you don't have a ton of belief, that's all right, because I didn't, but you were joined into a belief factory. Like, talk to the person that enrolled you, or talk to the person above them, or the nearest champ. Like, if you need a little bit of work in that area, like, you can get it from people who have it, who have already done what you want and have the belief and certainty to share with you. Like, I think our biggest thing in all of this is that we get to be a bridge of belief and show others what's possible, and you get to tap into that. So, like, my biggest thing is find enough belief to be able to determine what you want and get really clear on why you want it. My other thing, I guess I would just say, as an overall tip in general in this business, is when I first started, I really thought that it was about selling and convincing people, and that I've learned that it's really about asking good questions and putting ourselves in position to serve and support people. So for whatever that's worth, it also feels a lot better when you can go out every day as a detective, or whatever you want to call it, looking for ways to solve for X and give people better, I don't care, energy, health, finances, you fill it in. But if you can just start conversations and then ask people good questions, you're always going to be in a position to serve them, and they're always going to be more interested when it's coming from contribution versus consumption. And by the way, if you want to be a world-class connector, which is probably the biggest part of what we do, find out what people are interested in so you can connect them to what serves them, not just be on like a robotic, the ACE robot. Not, I mean, that's better than nothing, but so hopefully that makes sense. And then what's next for me? I mean, legend. That's clear. I've made my stand. And going into 2024, I have the great honor and pleasure of working with a lot of people, helping them to identify and get clear on their goals. And it's also a good reminder for me, as far as we've come, that my wife and I are going to be sitting down over the next week and really getting clear on what's next for us. Legend's a no-brainer, but there's so much more to that. And so I don't have an answer for you in this moment, but I'll be happy to report back to you.
I love it. I'm sure you will. Well, give everybody give Josh some love, and Dre some love. Thank you so much for sharing with us this morning, Josh. And I remember just after Epic, we were talking, I'm like, people need to hear his story. They need to know more, the process and the journey that's been going on behind the scenes, to get to this point. So thank you. It's such an inspiration, so much fun. And if there's one thing that you take from this, like, what is it that you're committing to? What's your certainty? What's your definite of purpose for 2024? Get clear on that. We got some time before the end of the year. Take 10, take 15, take 30 minutes over the next week and figure out what that is. And if it's not a tattoo, find a way to make it real and put it in front of you on a daily basis, right? I don't like needles, so I don't have any tattoos. So I have not done that, but I have found other ways to keep it in front of me, whether it's writing it on a piece of paper, or putting it in a notebook, or making a vision type board that's in front of me on a daily basis. You have to keep it in front of you. So thanks for being on, everybody. Happy Monday. It's going to be a great week. Make sure you're plugging into the Power 30s. We don't have a huddle call this week because we're really trying to promote those Power 30s. And with the 2 calls back to back, it gets to be a lot of Zooming. Tomorrow's Power 30 is going to be at a different time. It should be in the polls shortly. It will be at 8 Eastern, so it'll be at night. We've got feedback that we need some evening times for those that are working during the day. So 8 Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday through the end of the month, to accommodate that. There won't be one at 10 on those days, but all the details are in the Pulse. Also, the Project Bloom is in full effect. We have a guest call tonight. Stephanie Melky will be leading. It will be super powerful. And if we get enough attendance on the lives and on the Zoom itself, there'll be a BOGO tomorrow on some select flavors, which should be really, really great for people enrolling new customers, for hitting multiplier, and also for our existing customer community. So let's have some fun with that. Promote that to your teams. And thanks for being on. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.